Ho,
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 ho.
ho! Ho, ho, ho! You hoes. How happy holidays and have a Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho! That's my Santa impression.
Hope you were good this year, people.
Yes.
Were you on the nice list or the naughty list?
We'll never
Oh,
know. We'll
Hopefully,
never
most
know.
people were on the nice list.
Alex, remind me, what podcast is this?
It is. What do you mean?
The name of our podcast.
Oh, this
I
is
was trying to.
Therapy.
Yeah, there we go. Kino Therapy.
I was so confused for a
No, I
second.
I was doing like a little. What is the name of the podcast? Looks at writing on hand, like that kind of bit.
Welcome to Kino Therapy, our last episode of the season, of the year. Yay!
So season 3 will be coming in January.
Season
Yep.
3, holy shit!
I
Yes,
think.
we will be arriving back again once the Oscar nominations come out.
Back
And that's
again.
in January, usually, right?
Yeah, the end of January.
Ugh.
All right.
So yeah, welcome.
So,
Hopefully everybody's doing well. You're doing better than I'm sure you're doing better than the guy that got caught for killing the United Healthcare CEO.
well, obviously, I hope everyone's doing better than the United Healthcare CEO. Heyo!
He's being arraigned as we speak.
That's as of like a few hours before we started recording, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are doing better, then I hope you don't have United Healthcare. Ayo!
Ayo.
Ayo.
No, their denial rate is like through the roof.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. I hope people don't go on it.
And then apparently that they had like an AI related thing to have them look at claims or something like that. I'd need to look specifically at it, but it was like that was not good.
That should be illegal, and hopefully they're challenging that in the courts.
Same thing with I'm hoping that with the TikTok ban, because this is the same shit every year.
Oh yeah, do you think it's gonna get banned?
No.
I think it's gonna be banned for like a day, and then it'll be back.
Or like, I just think it's stupid. For one, it's just.
So if all of you out there remember, it's got to be owned by an American company by the end of the year, and not a Chinese company. Red Scare. Or
By
else,
January 19th.
I don't really care because I don't have it, so I don't care what happens to it.
Or else TikTok would be banned.
I only feel bad for like people that might make a living off of it, but other than that, I don't really care who it affects. It'll give people more time. It'll waste less people's lives and waste less of their time if it doesn't exist.
It'll probably positively affect you because you'd be like, "Thank God, no more TikTok crazes, no more skibbities, and no more what was that one where they were just stealing things?
Rizzler.
No,
the devious licks.
No devious licks. Was that a TikTok thing? I feel that was.
Yeah, it was. That was my first teaching job where that was like a thing. That was like fall 2021.
I remember you were so pissed about the meetings about that.
Yeah, we had meetings about it.
And you were so pissed.
I know somebody took apart a sink at the high school. I was at the middle school in the district I was working in. Yeah, but like, but unless like it doesn't, unless you like don't make your money off of TikTok, I don't really care. Go outside, do something that's more productive with your life. If you're just scrolling for hours on TikTok, I'm sorry, it's just not for me.
Or move your videos to YouTube.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm a YouTube Shorts guy anyway.
Or or
But yeah,
Instagram.
so that Devious Licks was really stupid.
It was. So, starting off with the end of every year, you guys might remember the list I did last year of all the shows that I watched.
Vaguely,
And
what was your number one last year?
I believe it was Brooklyn Nine-Nine, actually.
Did you watch that for the first time?
Well, from start to end. I watched it when it was on, but like, you know,
After?
yeah. Like the first time I watched it after it ended, basically. And there are a couple of shows that I watched this year that will be on this list, and I will say what those are when I get to it. So, like I did last year, I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way to the top. And yeah, let's just get into this. And Zach, you probably already know what my number one's going to be.
Yes, but go ahead and you just talk about your shows, right? You talk a little bit about them and why you liked them and stuff, and why you
Yes,
ranked them in a certain place.
yes.
Okay.
So I watched a total of 11 shows this year. Some were, I mean, I like them all, but some had, 4 seasons. Others had 10, 11. And this is all ranging from January up until now.
And these could be shows you've already watched.
Yes.
Mm.
A few of them are. A couple of them are shows that I watched last year too, like the ones I try to watch at least once a year.
I wonder if Matt's seen any of these shows.
He has
Possibly not every single show.
but
Yeah. I
at
haven't
least
seen every single show either. Sorry.
I might have heard of them. That's a
Yeah,
start.
he's the reason why I watched one of them, and we'll get into that.
Then I think I know which one that is.
But where it's placed, you'll understand why.
I think I'll understand why too.
So we're gonna start at number 11, and this is a Michael Schur show. It had Kristen Bell and Ted Danson. You guys know what show this is?
The Good Place.
Yes. So I like this writer a lot, right? But compared to like the other shows he's done, this one wasn't as good.
Who's the writer?
Michael Schur. He played Mose on The Office, and he made Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and he co-created Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Parks and Rec.
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
And he was a producer on The Office for a few seasons. So I didn't hate this show. Oh, speaking of when I was talking about TikTok earlier, people were eating me alive for where I put this show, and people just don't understand that there are 10 shows that I watched that I liked better. So kindly shut up.
They thought it was a bad place for the good place.
Yes. Like,
there's the laugh track. We're putting in laugh track. All right, in case you guys didn't know, I had already said this before we started, so I wanted to repeat it for the pod. So there we go.
Your delivery, I think, was better this time.
Yes, it was. So the reason this is like where it is because, for one, the show only had 4 seasons and they were very short. I just wish the show had a little bit more to it. So I feel like when a season ended, I'm like, that's it. And
were there cliffhanger endings?
Yeah, like not the last season. That actually had a proper finale, but it's just most shows that I watch usually have like 20 to 24 episodes a season, so that's why I kind of wanted more out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's the concept of the show is like these people are dead, and basically the good place is just another way of saying heaven, and then the bad place is hell. And Kristen Bell got sent to the good place, but she's actually done bad things in her life, and she should be in hell, apparently. The show is a little stupid in parts too. Like, there's a whole arc with Maya Rudolph, which was kind of dumb.
Maya Rudolph?
Yeah, she's like a judge that determines if Kristen Bell should go to hell or not.
Huh.
And I just thought it was kind of dumb. But I would have liked the show more if it had like a little more to it. Like at least one more season. And the people on TikTok, you got to understand, it's my opinion and my list.
Did you reply to anybody by chance?
I just said I liked it, but I didn't like it as much as all the other shows.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that are saying L list,
Like, how dare you place The Good Place underneath X show? It's definitely not as it's definitely not worse than X show or whatever you rated.
But I just thought people would know by now.
Was there anyone that was like that?
No, not yet.
Oh,
but
okay.
what were you gonna say, Zach?
I was gonna say, I would think by now, after everything we've been through with the internet and social media, that anybody that does their own personal list, it's subjective and it's their opinion. Like, people still don't get it, and it's sad.
Except my lists, which are correct all the time.
Yeah,
and never
it's
wrong,
like,
and my opinion is the one that people should be listening to.
Your opinion is Allah.
And they were like, L list.
Whoa.
This here. I'm like, you're an L. Yeah, I don't have much else to say about this show, but
because it's just funny people still have an attachment to the show. I mean, didn't it go off years ago now?
Like 2020, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I could say that's years ago.
But it's just
yeah.
Sorry for having an opinion and that I didn't like it as much as most shows.
It's fine. It's probably not everybody's cup of tea anyway.
But I do like Kristen Bell in the show, and there's a character.
Was Ted Danson good in the show?
Yes, he was. He's like the boss of heaven, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a character named Janet that's really funny, and there was that guy who was in Midsommar who was in that show. I just can't place him right now.
Was it the Asian guy?
No, the black guy.
Oh, yeah. I never saw whole episodes of The Good Place, but I've seen clips of it online, and one of my friends recommended I watch it after I watched Cheers one summer.
Oh, yeah, because Ted Danson's in that, too.
Yeah, I just never ended up watching it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good, show to watch in, like, a week or two because of how many episodes it has, but yeah, the next show I'm gonna talk about also only had 4 seasons and about the same amount of episodes in said seasons.
Mm-hmm.
This is a show from Tina Fey on Netflix.
Oh yeah, see if Matt can guess this one.
Tina Fey, Netflix.
And it's not 30 Rock.
Damn. Was she in any other shows other than that? I can't think of it.
Well, she created this show. She was in it as what, a guest star, Alex?
Yeah, like
I should just pretend to be horribly bad at guessing these shows.
You can still, I mean, if you can't guess it, I'll obviously say what it is.
Was it the sequel to 30 Rock, 40 Stone?
No. That'd be a good name for a show, though, honestly. 40 Stone.
Huh. I just thought that now.
This show also had Ellie Kemper from The Office and Jane Krakowski and Carol Kane.
Oh yeah, I forgot Carol Kane was in that.
I basically kind of gave it away. It's Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. This was a good show. It's just the pacing was awful.
What do you mean by that?
So when you think an episode's about to end, there's still like 15 minutes left in it.
What? Was that done on purpose?
I would want to say yes, but like I'm still not too familiar with how Netflix shows work. But they waste like 5 minutes with credits at the end too. So it's just like
5 minutes of credits?
so it's like credits like a movie, which I thought was weird.
Oh, they do like whatever. How a movie where it's like it does who directed it and then a few of the cast and some other things and then it goes full on into like the scrolling down credits.
Except it doesn't scroll. It just, does it like
Oh,
a
it just
normal
pops
show.
up. Oh yeah, it just pops up. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
really weird. That's really weird.
So like the episodes were between like 25 and 30 minutes. And
Mm-hmm.
there were scenes with like, oh, the episode's about to end because like the way it's set up, right? Like it's like a conversation, like the show's about to end, but no, there's still more to it.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't think that's good storytelling. What do you think, Matt?
Well, I can't really say because I haven't seen it. So,
Well, just picture like your your favorite show of all time, Twin Peaks. I forgot what its name was for a second. Sorry. Imagine like that, Matt. They figure out the mystery or whatever's going on in that episode, and then there's still like 10 or 15 more minutes in that episode. What would you think of that?
um, that is probably the worst possible choice you should have picked because don't try like 5 or 6 minutes. Try like 10 episodes, 10 whole episodes.
Oh my
after
God, they
finishing
did
the
that. They
mystery.
did that too.
Uh,
Shit. Sorry, you could cut this out.
oh no, that's something that's already known about Twin Peaks. The major part of the mystery was solved in season 2, like right in the middle of season 2, and because of studio pressure, and they're kind of left with a lot of the season to try to do whatever. It starts getting much better with new plot lines towards the end of the season than the then 90s season finale was like big. It had like they brought back David Lynch and he directed the episode, and it's like
So like
a great episode, and it had like 1 billion plot lines that were still up in the air to solve in a season 3, and then they canceled the show because they fucked it up.
So this show wasn't canceled. I think it had a proper ending. Oh yeah, by the way, none of the shows that I watched this year got canceled and had cliffhangers for the
Well, that's
anyone.
good.
But so actually, Zach, now that you mentioned Tina Fey, yes, she guest stars, but she plays more than one character.
And then wasn't this show originally supposed to be on NBC, Alex, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes, it was. And then
But it was they didn't really get the concept. Isn't she just tell us briefly about what the show's about?
so basically, there's these 4 women, and like obviously the main girl, Ellie Kemper, is part of this cult. It's like a doomsday cult or something
See,
like that.
that's probably why it didn't get picked up for NBC.
So these 4 women get kidnapped by this like reverend who's like a conspiracy nut.
John Hamm, right?
Yes. And they're in this bunker for over 15 years. And then when they finally get rescued, they have to adapt to their new life. But I can see why NBC didn't want to pick up the show. Definitely. Like I said, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but I just wish the pacing of the show was a little better.
I heard Titus Burgess's character is really funny.
He is. That's why I like. That's why I like. Yeah, I debated actually. This was the one show I debated not continuing, and
Well, like stopping it.
yeah, and he
Oh,
kept me,
jeez.
and he kept me in the show.
So what makes
And,
you like it better than The Good Place? Tina
Titus,
Fey's involvement
yeah, and Titus.
and Titus.
Yeah, like there were episodes where Tina Fey was in. Like this was the second character that she played. Like those were like really funny episodes.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a whole arc. It was she played this like alcoholic shrink, and then she lost her license to be a therapist after she was drunk during her therapy sessions.
That's funny.
And then she just went off the rails.
Mm. As
Oh,
a therapist does sometimes.
and then Jane Krakowski was pretty good in the show too.
Yeah, I was surprised she did another show with her.
Yeah, she wasn't in. She was that one character that wasn't in every single episode though. So like,
Yeah, but I think she was doing she did a musical, I think, well, while she was doing the show.
and that would make sense.
I mean,
Oh,
it was a limited run, but still.
and the other
It was with Zachary Levi, but fuck that guy.
the other thing that was dumb was David Cross was in this show, and like his family owned like the Washington NFL franchise.
Mm-hmm.
So we find out Jane Krakowski's like, she was raised by Native Americans, and this show was around when they were still the Redskins.
Yeah.
So I'm maybe starting to think that show is part of the reason why they changed their name in the first place. But
I'm sure it helped
yeah,
for sure. That's interesting. I did not know that. I'm surprised as a sports fan I never knew about that.
but the sad thing was that was an arc that kind of just dragged on. It was like a whole season practically. I was like, that'd be okay for like an episode or two, but not almost a whole season. Oh, and then the other thing that was stupid was David Cross got run over by a truck, and he didn't die, but he like had to have facial reconstruction surgery.
Did he look weird?
It was like they replaced the actor. That was like the weird thing.
That's kind of stupid.
So like there were little things like that. And I just thought that was weird.
What's your next show?
Community. So this would be a lot higher if it only had those first 3 seasons, which were great. But I think this show is where we found out that Chevy Chase was an asshole.
Well, people knew he was. It's just it got more prominence because social media was out and stuff when the show started. So, yeah, he was always kind of an asshole, but I guess became more of a jerk as he got older. Case in point, he was pretty old by the time Community was on.
And like they fired him, for being an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like, and then like when he left, that's when Donald Glover left, and then that's when the show took a dive in quality. Forgot you. Those of you that don't know, Helen from Drake and Josh was in this show too.
I did know that. I was surprised. All right, who's like typing?
Oh, I don't
know. I hear like clicking noises.
Yeah, I think that's just the sound of the space bar, because you know how space bars are, right?
Yeah, I don't care. It's not that loud. I was just I thought I was going crazy.
But so anyway,
Staying typing.
No, I mean go ahead and still do it, but you weren't doing it that loud. Never mind.
So the other So where was I? Oh, so this show had a really good cast, and the character Abed, I feel like I related to him on a personal level with, the being a film geek.
Mm-hmm.
And he was always self-aware about what was happening. So like he literally, like, there's a whole episode where it's a bottle episode, and he even says it's a bottle episode. Does anyone want to explain what a bottle episode is? Or
Is that a self-contained episode?
pretty much an episode that's like mostly in one location.
One location, yeah. Bottle episode, or was it bottleneck episode?
And Brooklyn Nine-Nine did one of those too. Like the whole episode was in the interrogation room.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Interesting.
So, like I was saying, our friend Ben also had this issue with this show, right? There were way too many themed episodes.
Like stupid themes.
Yeah, like there were like 4 different paintball episodes, and I'm like, one was enough.
Like, what was the stupidest theme episode?
Oh, there was this one where it's all in claymation, but like it's all like this guy's dream.
What the hell?
So like it's not real. It's like a dream, but it's done in claymation.
That's weird.
And it was like a Christmas episode too, so it was like really
Oh,
bizarre.
that's why they did it. Because of like Rudolph and Santa Claus is coming to town.
But it was like it was done horribly. I'll say that.
You'd think they would get a decent studio to do it.
But
I'm
like
sure Wake a studio probably wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
and then there was another animated, like there were like 3 animated episodes in this show.
Like 2D animation.
Like there was one in the style of G.I. Joe. It was just, it's just not a lot of, it wasn't canon, pretty much, to the rest of the show.
Did they have a proper finale?
It got canceled, and then they brought the show back to another, like, I don't know, this streaming service that isn't around anymore. But yes, it did have a proper finale. It almost did.
Does that finale on a new streaming service now?
Yeah, it's on Peacock with the rest of the show. But I'm just saying the last season wasn't on NBC.
I did not know that. And I know they're trying to do a movie, right?
Yeah, but like Chevy Chase won't be involved, and
which is fine. Because didn't they kill off his character?
yes.
I don't know, spoiler alert, but the show's been out for years.
And the thing is, it's like it's Donald Glover is why it's delayed.
Yeah, but like, what is he even doing now? Oh, he released a new album, right?
Yeah, but I feel like he retired the Childish Gambino name, so that's why I'm just like confused.
Yeah, like what's he doing now? Because I don't remember. And his show Atlanta got canceled, so I don't know what he's doing now to hold up the production. Probably a contract dispute or something stupid.
And then Joel McHale, being the main character. Oh, there was the other thing. The Dean character was like the weirdest character I've ever seen.
Who played him?
Jim Rash.
Oh, yeah, I know who you're talking about.
He had this. He had a crush on Joel McHale, but he was like so obvious about it.
Was he gay?
Yeah, because his actor is.
Oh, I hate annoying characters on shows and weird characters.
There was an episode where he did this, and it just like made no sense. Oh, the other thing with the last season too is like they actually dropped like F-bombs and shit.
And what, they just block it out? I mean, probably not on Peacock, but
Oh, no. They actually have the F-bombs.
it was
In the
on
la-
NBC. It was on NBC.
No. The last season that wasn't.
Oh,
I found it was it was on a Yahoo streaming service, which it no longer exists.
Yahoo had a streaming service.
Yeah, and it was like that was the only thing it had. Yeah, exactly. There were episodes where he was like he was in a costume in like almost every episode. It was annoying.
He was in a costume in every episode.
Almost every episode.
Yeah, that's weird.
Oh, and Ken Yan was in this show too.
Was this character funny? I could see him getting annoying though.
He was, but like, he was a teacher, and then they found out that, he didn't go to college or whatever. So like they made him stop.
So what's the show about?
Basically, this study group, and they all like, so Joel McHale's a lawyer, and he was, and because he technically didn't finish college,
Mm-hmm.
and that he had his, like he couldn't practice law anymore. But the thing about it is it's these characters that are totally different from everyone else. You got Joel McHale, Allison Brie, Chevy Chase, obviously, Donald Glover, Abed. Oh, and the reason the study group exists is because they're all in the same class.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, there's a professor there, and Joel McHale wants, the answers to all the tests, and it's just, a shit show. But like, the reason it's not higher than it is, it's just because after season 3, it fell off. It just
Makes sense.
yeah.
What's your next show?
So this is a show Matt knows.
This is a
I
show
think
that
this is a
Matt
show
knows.
This might be a show that Matt knows.
And this is the reason this show is not higher.
I can only guess.
Is because of the last 2 seasons on Netflix.
Yep, I knew it.
Arrested Development.
Oh yeah, I wasn't sure for a second what it was going to be.
First 3 seasons, some of the funniest shit ever. After it goes to Netflix, huge nosedive.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. But like, it's just like there's a lot of bizarre shit happening in it. So basically, there's a family, and the father, played by Jeffrey Tambor, is sent to prison for, what was it, Matt?
It was he was arrested for illegal realtor dealings with Islamic terrorists, I believe.
Yes. That
All right,
sounds about
all right, because this was a post 9/11 show.
No, it wasn't Osama bin Laden. Was it Saddam Hussein?
Oh fuck, I don't even
So
remember.
it wasn't.
Probably
It was
something really
it
stupid
was
and
just
ridiculous.
like with a foreign regime. With a foreign regime.
So basically, Jason Bateman is like handed over the company, and
So he has to deal with his dad in jail, and he also has to deal with the dysfunction of his whole family, who he doesn't want to be around.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. This show is the reason why every time I hear the final countdown, I just think of Job.
He's the magician.
And he's
he's
a horrible
really,
magician.
Yeah, but he sucks.
But like every time he doesn't act, that song is playing, and it's so funny every time.
I feel like every show has somebody that does magic or is a magician for some reason. I don't know why. It's so random.
And then I like the arc with Job where he's married to Amy Poehler, and they got married in real life at the time. But the funny thing was Job didn't remember what her name was.
Yeah, they got married after one night, and then they spend the whole arc trying to get a divorce, but he doesn't want to remember the name, and he also doesn't want to confess that they haven't consummated the marriage yet, so he's like, oh yeah, I definitely hit that. He's like, well, what's her name? It's like, Crindy. Name's not Crindy.
There was just a lot of great running jokes on this show, like David Cross as a blue man.
My favorite running joke was his character just constantly saying out of context stuff in almost every single scene. Like they were completely unaware of the sexual nature of the things they were saying.
And it was
I'm afraid I just blew myself, he says, covered in blue paint.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I feel like everybody that's like been on social media or the internet has seen that meme.
And it's really funny. But there's like a lot of I just kind of wish that the last 2 seasons on Netflix didn't exist. But I will say that this is the one show that I watched that actually was canceled, but then it got brought back. And it just, when it got brought back, it was, I think it was like filmed out of order, and like they focused on like one character an episode.
And then, and then they re-edited it into a more chronologically focused kind of season.
But it was just poorly done. I haven't watched the re-edited version, but the version I did watch, it was just very poorly done. And the last season wasn't like, if the last season was a little better, but it still wasn't that great. But yeah, I mean, it would be a little higher if,
Yeah.
It didn't have those last 2 seasons, but the cast in the show is great. Great running jokes. I love the one with Carl Weathers.
Oh, then is it Liza Minnelli? Liza Minnelli's in the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, Buster has like this whole thing where he's like, I fucked Lucille too. Was that Buster?
Yeah, that was Buster. No, but it was also Job.
Oh, right.
Which is also funny. So their mother's name is Lucille, and their neighbor, who's played by Liza Minnelli, is also named Lucille. They call her Lucille too.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help that Buster got his hand bitten off by a loose seal.
Oh, my favorite thing is when that hook gets stuck in Job's ass. But the best running joke this show had, season 4, I mean, was when they, like, at the end of every episode, they would do on the next Arrested Development, and then it was like scenes that we don't actually see in the next episode. Which, I'm not gonna lie, I was so confused by that the first few episodes. And then I realized that it was a joke. So it was Ron Howard narrating the show, wasn't it? I
Yes.
think.
Did the
Yep,
show
it
have a
was.
proper finale?
Kind of. And it
Kind
wasn't.
of. They were gonna set up for a movie, and I feel like the ending is kind of conclusive already as it stands.
The finale from season 3, you mean, or 5?
Well, I mean, finale from season 3 is, I think, perfect. But the way it ends with season 4, it's like you don't, or season 5, you don't really need to know what happens after that. I feel like you can think of it as kind of conclusive of its own. But I think they were gonna have a movie, but unfortunately they cannot, with the passing of one of the main cast members.
And Portia de Rossi quit acting.
True.
And it was Lucille that sadly passed, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Great show, minus the last 2 seasons. I'll just leave it at that.
Yes, and R.I.P. to Jessica Walter. She was really a fun part of the show as well. It's only one banana, Michael. How much could it cost? $10?
$10.
That's my favorite. Here's some money. Go see a Star War.
Man, there's like so much gold like in a single episode. There's at least 2 jokes or two or three jokes a minute in the show.
That's kind of like how another show on Alex's list, his top show, which we're gonna get to.
Oh, you already know his top show. Yeah.
I do. Yeah, but just last thing about Arrested Development, when the actress that played Lucille died, there was so many like awesome and good tributes from her. Like I didn't realize how beloved her character was on the show. Like I knew that she was on the show, but like I hadn't seen anybody like mourn an actor like that for a while, and a character specifically. And then obviously Andre Brower in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, he also got a lot of similar tributes like she did.
Yeah. We'll get into
If I wanted something your thumb touched, I'd eat the inside of your ear.
What?
That's another quote from her.
Oh my god. All right, Alex, next one.
This is a show you watched this year, actually.
My summer show
Yes.
that I always watch, yep.
And it was the main reason we took a trip down to one of the main reasons we took a trip down to the summer. I'm sure you can guess what it is.
30 Rock.
Yes. So basically, it's a loose version of Tina Fey's time on Saturday Night Live. Is that correct?
Yes.
And it's created by
the characters in the show are based off people she worked with and came in contact with in her early years working on Saturday Night Live.
So basically, so like the characters are like parodies of people she worked with.
Yeah, and the whole show takes place at 30 Rock, not actually 30 Rock. It actually was filmed in Queens, but the outside scenes and the 2 live episodes they did were actually at 30 Rock. And that's why the show's called 30 Rock. 30 Rockefeller Plaza is where Saturday Night Live is filmed, along with The Tonight Show, which Alex and I saw, and a couple other shows, Kelly Clarkson's show. And at that time, and still, Tina Fey's character's writing she's writing a sketch comedy show. And then in season 1, she has to come to terms with having a leading Hollywood actor in the show, played by a fictionalized version of Tracy Morgan, who's known on the show as Tracy Jordan.
And also known as the guy that goes, Liz Lemon.
Liz Lemon.
I think he's the only one that calls her that.
I know. Also, her boss is played by Alec Baldwin really well. Jack Donaghy. He's loosely based off of the creator of Saturday Night Live, Warren Michaels.
See, that's something I actually did not know.
Mm-hmm.
Which he was probably the best character in that whole show, arguably.
He was, because he went from playing like an asshole to like a really character that I feel like I could have related to. Like
Yes.
he had a very human side to him, which I wasn't expecting when the show started.
And like you can tell with his relationship with Tina Fey's characters that went on,
Mm-hmm.
which that was probably one of the best aspects of that show. To be
Yeah,
honest with you,
was their relationship, and like you said that they usually by at least once an episode they shared a scene together.
I think there was only one episode where they didn't, and I just am blanking on which one it is. But yeah, like you just said, they at least had one scene together in every episode. What else should I? Oh, I will say this. Who is Jane Krakowski's character based off? Who?
I
Do you know?
think I don't know, but I feel like it's Amy Poehler.
I just kind of thought she was a little much, but I know that was like the point.
Yeah, I thought scenes and episodes that had her, Kenneth, and Tracy were just kind of too much because, like, I feel like getting the three of them together for like an annoying storyline was like kind of stupid.
And the one episode I could not stand. I think you'll agree with me on this because Tracy Morgan, like his character had his wife had her own show,
Oh yeah, played by Sherry Shepherd.
and when they did episodes only on that show, I just did not like those.
I will say the second one was not as bad as the first one, but still not great.
Like they were just really annoying, and just she was like the stereotypical black woman, like loud as hell.
Yeah, it was supposed to be like mocking those Housewives Bravo shows and like keeping up with the Kardashians.
But it was just done really bad, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know what Tina Fey was thinking. Also there's episodes taken off of Peacock because of blackface was used what, 4 times?
3, I think,
Mm-hmm.
which I did end up getting to those episodes, but they're very short scenes, so like I just don't understand why they had to remove the whole episodes to this
I
day. But
I never ended up watching those episodes, and I'm okay with that.
I mean, if you do watch them down the road, you can just fast forward through them. Honestly, it's what I
Yeah,
did.
I don't know what she was thinking, Tina Fey, doing that, but
But she did apologize for it, so that like I'm okay with that.
yeah. I will say the series finale, I actually watched it over the weekend actually after we hung out this weekend.
Yeah.
I wanted to rewatch it for some reason, just randomly, and it's a really, really good finale.
Oh, and this show also had really great guest stars.
Oh yeah, like tons of guest stars. Like sometimes my mom would be like around when I was watching. She's like, "Wow, that show was a lot of good guest stars," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know, it's crazy." Like all of a sudden, like Al Gore's in an episode.
So there's an episode with David Schwimmer. There's an episode with Matthew Broderick. There's an episode with
Carrie Fisher.
there's episodes with Jimmy Fallon. I think he
Yes,
actually played Jimmy Fallon.
yeah, it's because his show Late Night. Um, before he went to did the Tonight Show. Yeah.
Like there's a whole thing. There's an arc with Matt Damon.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Giamatti's in an episode.
I thought the whole show Alex, overall was like stayed consistent for most of the time.
It did, and I feel like it ended at the perfect time too.
Yeah, I feel like it did end in a perfect. It ended right before it was probably going to start to get stale.
Yes, exactly.
But
But
yeah, good show.
my favorite guest star though, he had three very brief scenes in 3 episodes.
Hmm.
But every time he was in it, it was so funny. Will Ferrell as the bitch hunter.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that.
It was just it was like he only had like one line in every one of those episodes, but it was like the funniest thing.
I really liked Elaine Stritch, Alec Baldwin's mom in the show.
Oh yeah. So one of the whole thing. So when Elizabeth Banks was in the show, one of the episodes that's done on Peacock is actually his mom meeting Elizabeth Banks at Christmas.
Which is ranked as like the best episode, isn't it? Or one of the best.
Yeah. So like that's an episode like you have to like really find, but like just you don't have to watch the end because that's where that blackface scene is.
Mm-hmm.
But
oh no, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of a different Christmas episode his mom was on.
But whatever one you're thinking of, yeah, probably that was it.
It was like in
But,
season 2 or 3, wasn't it?
yeah, the Luda Christmas or whatever.
Yeah. That's the non-blackface episode that his mom's in is usually ranked as like one of the best episodes ever on the show.
Oh, and not only that, who there was an episode with Steve Martin too.
He was my favorite guest star.
Yeah, mine too.
I think he was based off of a real person that Tina Fey knew. Like a famous person that did that. Like stayed in their house all the time.
But then we find out why.
Yeah. She said,
He was
I think they
actually-
did. They based him off of a. She never will say who the celebrity was, but there was really a celebrity that was like that. Well, anyway, I'm glad you liked the show. Thanks for watching with me. I know
Yes.
I said I was going to watch it, then you decided to watch it, and I said you didn't have to, but I'm glad you did. And I'm glad you liked it, because I really liked it too.
Yes, but the reason it's not completely higher is just because of the next shows.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, well, hammer these home.
All right, the next one is one I'm actually still watching, so I'm not gonna, too deep into it. But it's Friends. If you know what Friends is, basically just 6 friends out on the town. Actually, no, out in the city, doing their own thing. Relationships, all that
Doing
stuff.
that thing.
Doing their thing. Just 6 white friends doing their thing.
I mean, like, I feel like you'd have to be living under a rock to not know what Friends is.
Yeah, I mean, what hasn't already been said about the show? I mean, it made Jennifer Aniston a movie star.
Yes.
But I mean,
I'm
they're
not.
all good. They're all good in it. I mean, I've seen a few episodes. It's definitely a show I do want to watch from beginning to end at some point.
Yeah, so the reason I'm not going too deep into it is because I'm still watching it.
What do you
I
want?
still have
Season 9 still?
8,
Oh, 8. My bad.
and there's 10. So,
Mhm.
but I wanted to put it somewhere for what I have seen.
Yeah, then that was like one of the last sitcoms for a while until other shows, which we're going to get into after this.
Number
like-
4.
Yeah,
Oh.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. I
was going to say that sitcoms, like, quote unquote, people thought sitcoms were going to end once Friends and Everybody Loves Raymond ended. But then sitcoms had a rebound in the late 2000s.
Yeah, because Everybody Loves Raymond ended like a year after that.
Yeah, and then Frasier ended the same year as Friends.
And didn't it have the same number of seasons as Friends, or like one more?
One more, 11, yeah. All right, rattle these off, Alex.
So the rest of these, -1, are all shows I watched last year. So number 5 is The King of Queens. I've talked about this show countless times on here before. It's a show with Kevin James and Jerry Stiller. It's a classic. The reason I'm rushing through these is just because we've been recording for 54 minutes. Anyway, just a classic. Number 4 is a show from Greg Daniels and Michael Schur, Parks and Recreation, with Amy Poehler, Chris Pratt, and Nick Offerman. Very similar to The Office, I should say. But very just, it's I've talked about this show before, so I'm just kind of rushing through this so you guys can get to your stuff.
You don't have to rush through with your number one.
No. Number 3, this was my favorite show for like the longest time until, I've seen other things. The Office, I've talked about that like 100 times on here before.
No, I've never heard you talk about The Office.
Well, I've talked about it 100 times in the past.
I know, I'm just being facetious. Or I'm being, what's the word? An asshole. Keep going.
Number 2, another show I watched earlier last year too. Rest in peace to Andre Brower. It's Brooklyn Nine-Nine. When
Oh yeah,
I
and also rest in peace, Matthew Perry from Friends.
Oh yeah, that's right. So when I did this list last year, it was right after Andre Brower had passed. So, and it was my number 1 show last year. Until my number 1.
Oh, just one thing. I didn't know that you liked Brooklyn Nine-Nine better than The Office. That's shocking to me.
I do now.
That's shocking to me. Anyway, go ahead. Your number 1.
You're leaving me in suspense. Holy shit!
Drum roll, please. Dun, 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 dun,
Well,
dun, 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 dun,
We
dun,
can add
dun,
it.
dun.
We can add it in post.
All right.
So this
Drum
is a
roll.
show I watched twice this year, actually. I met someone on this show.
Oh,
It's our co-host Zach's favorite show ever.
oh,
Mhm.
He convinced me to watch it.
oh!
The anticipation.
I think fellow listeners will know what this is.
Yeah, it's Modern Family. Oh,
Hey, hey, dun, 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 dun. Hey, hey, dun, dun, dun. Hey, dun, hey, dun, dun.
good enough.
The theme song.
Another thing, the assholes said Modern Family was too high. I ignored those assholes.
So, what did you think of Modern Family?
It was very well done. It was in mockumentary style like The Office, but it was done in a very interesting way.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I appreciate that what this didn't do that The Office did was, the camera stares and all that stuff.
Yeah, I liked that too.
They did interview scenes very similar to The Office. And
Yeah,
when they
it was usually mostly the adults, but the kids did sometimes too.
but they were all like every character was great.
I
Minus
think
like few, but
I mean all the adult characters weren't they in every episode?
yes, and you know how many episodes there were for those who don't know? 250.
Yeah, it's like one of the longest running like comedies. Yeah,
And
250 episodes.
so like the kids, like they were in, most of the episodes, but like there were episodes where they weren't, in it because they weren't relevant to the plot or what have you.
Well, I think one time it was because like they were sick or had stuff going on.
Like there was I think there was only one episode where it was just the adults, and it was the Vegas episode.
Mm-hmm. Which is one of my favorite episodes, but
Yeah,
not because the kids aren't in it, but
I did a top
because the kids aren't in it. Fuck kids.
because I hate kids.
I hate children.
I think I did a top 10 episodes when I finished the show for the first time back.
They're
in
coarse
April.
and they're rough and it gets everywhere. No, wait, that's sand. Never mind.
I have to go back into the archives to remember if I did my top 5 on this podcast or not. But
Top 5 favorite shows?
no, like episodes of the show.
I think you did.
I think you did.
Yeah, and I think it was like number 2 or something. And there was an episode done entirely through FaceTime technology. I feel like there were a lot of episodes that were unique, and there was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
There
So
was
the
just
show is about 3 modern families.
yeah. Oh, I will say this though. Before I was very hesitant to watch this show before, just because I found Sofia Vergara annoying, and then I finally realized like that's kind of the point
Mm-hmm.
of her character, and it makes sense.
Especially in season 3.
What makes you
And
say that season especially?
because I feel like her and Cam were like, or Eric Stone Street, I felt like their characters were very exaggerated in that season for some reason.
Yeah, and that was the
Even
first
though
season.
it's still my favorite season, I still feel like they especially exaggerate their characters, and I'm glad that they toned it down in the following seasons.
You know, it's funny. That's my favorite season too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk
Um,
about the 3 families briefly?
yeah, so we got, the traditional family, the Dunphys, Phil and Claire, played by Julie Bowen and Ty
I
Burrell.
like how you're like, let's talk about the families. Let's talk about the families.
Hmm.
And they have 3 kids, Haley, Alex, and Luke. One of the kids is the actress that Zach and I have met,
Sarah
which,
Hyland.
which is part of the reason why I watched that show more than once this year. I will
Mm-hmm.
not deny that. Um, I said to Zach, I thought Sarah Hyland was kind of a bitch early on, but I feel like that was the point.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Oh, and then you got the I wouldn't I feel like this is the first sitcom to actually do this. A gay couple with a child.
It was, I think. Like there were
One
shows with gay characters, but never like as a couple with a kid.
yeah, so there's Cam and Mitch. Cam's actor is actually straight, which a lot of people find shocking.
I remember he had to go on. He went on Barbara Walters 2020 with Mitch, Jesse Tyler
And they
Ferguson.
were
I
like, I'm
remember,
gonna have. He was like, I gotta come out. I'm
yeah,
actually straight.
she was like, "You're gay," and he's like, "Yeah," and you're straight. And no, she's like, "And you're not gay," and he's like, "That's right."
And then there's the other family, the patriarch of the family, Jay. And his second wife, Gloria, and she had a son from a previous marriage.
Manny
So
Delgado.
yeah. But like Zach said, even though Jay can be an asshole, I feel like he had like the best development out of everyone. I don't know what
Matt,
you
Matt, he's almost like Spencer Tracy and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, which I think was he was loosely based off of him.
Interesting.
Yeah.
even though he can be an asshole, I feel
And
like
but I think because people like that actor so much because he was on Married with Children, Ed O'Neill.
yeah.
And yeah, and the whole asshole thing, he's like I feel like it's my opinion, it's a cover. He really actually really does love everybody in his family. He just does it as a cover to not like I mean, he comes from that generation of where like my grandfather was like one of my grandfathers like that too, where he never like shared his feelings and never like talked about his past too much. And that's kind of like how Jay is.
And I mean, I wouldn't say he's homophobic to Mitch being gay, but it's just,
He comes around. He sees
yeah.
that he's a good father and that Cam is a good husband to Mitch. And yeah, and that
I
show's just amazing.
I feel so they actually incorporated Jesse Tyler Ferguson coming out into that show.
Oh, they
Because
did?
yeah, so Jesse Tyler Ferguson's dad questioned, like, he didn't know that he was gay, and he had to come out like 3 times. And
Mm-hmm.
Mitch said he had to come out to Jay several times.
Mm-hmm.
So if you
That's
rewatch that
interesting.
show, you'll catch it.
I also remember there was controversy with the show that Cam and Mitch never kissed. And then I remember they made a whole episode about that. And then at the end of the episode, the other characters kiss, but then they just kiss in the background.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of funny that there was kind of like an FU to like the critics where they do it subtly, like in the background.
Oh yeah.
They also incorporated California legalizing gay marriage or same sex marriage in season 5, like in real time, which I thought was really cool.
Yes, I was just about to say that.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, it's all right. Oh, also another show with a lot of amazing guest stars. Not as many as 30 Rock, but
No, but there was still a lot. Probably, I would say probably the second or third most on your favorite shows list.
and Matthew Broderick was also in this show, and I mentioned him in
Mm-hmm.
the 30 Rock part.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I meant to say for 30 Rock, Will Arnett was on 30 Rock in a bunch of episodes, and he was
That's
in
right.
Arrested Development.
But yeah, those are all the shows that I watched this year. Some of these I'll probably watch again next year, but you'll have to wait until then.
Nice. Good job. I don't think I could watch 11 shows.
Well, I mean, what I do is I watch like episodes before I go to sleep every night, so that's how I manage to do that.
Mm-hmm. All right, Matt, your finally, I know you've been waiting with bated breath, your segment, our last segment of 2024.
Welcome to the second edition of So You Think You Know Them, a show about the true story behind a person whose life has become a biopic, or in this case of our film tonight, a dark horror comedy. Tonight's film is a 2000 film from the year 2000, Shadow of the Vampire, which means we're taking a look at another director for the series. Tonight we are looking at the legendary director Friedrich Wilhelm Murnau, the main character of our film in question. So, Shadow of the Vampire is about the filming of the famous film Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror, the acclaimed vampire film, which is currently over a century-year old. 1 century.
Yep, 1922.
And it's public domain, so you can watch it for free.
But this film takes a twist. What if the actor playing the titular vampire was actually really a vampire? In the film, FW Murnau, played by John Malkovich, is determined to make Nosferatu an unauthorized adaptation of Bram Stoker's Gothic horror novel Dracula. To enhance the realism of the film, Murnau hires a real vampire who goes by the name of Max Schreck, played by Willem Dafoe in an Oscar-nominated performance. And fun fact, this is the only time in which a person portraying a vampire has been nominated for an Oscar.
Huh.
The crew stand by as the actor playing the vampire starts to pick off the crew one by one, killing all of them. The movie was one of the first films to be produced by Saturn Films, which is Nicolas Cage's production company. And this was
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and this was also the first big budget film from director Elias Marriage, who was best known for the low budget gothic horror and cult favorite Begotten. It's a fun film. Shadow of the Vampire, not Begotten. I and the film is truly a love letter to silent film. I mean, Begotten's a little much. Um, it's a. I mean, it starts off with God disemboweling himself for like 5 minutes, so it's quite a trip.
What?
Yes, it's one of those kind of experimental films. Um, but anyway, um, Shadow of the Vampire is truly a love letter to silent films and early German cinema, which must be of interest to the film's producer Nicolas Cage, since you can recall, if you recall, there is a sizable amount of time in his fictional film Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent dedicated to his love of the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. But I
Yes.
digress.
Yes.
Now I could start debunking the obvious thing about this film. Vampires don't exist.
Are we sure
Shocking,
about that?
yes, shocking, I know. But everyone lived through the production of this film. Just need to point that out. But I wanted to use this film as a sort of jumping off point to talk about more now, one of my personal favorite directors of the silent era. All right, so I'm going to start with this.
You don't need to
Friedrich,
rush, Matt. You can just do what you were gonna do.
no
We'll
problem.
edit this down. Just go with what you were gonna do. Don't shorten it.
Oh, it's fine. Friedrich Wilhelm Plum was born in. Okay, so there's going to be a lot of German names and German towns and German
Just do
things
the
that I'm
best
going to
you
say.
can.
I'm going to try the best I can, but please pardon my Western tongue. Okay.
Yeah, you're not trying to be
Um,
offensive.
Bielefeld, Germany. He was born in Bielefeld, Germany on December 28th, 1888. He was the second of three sons from his father's second marriage, and the first marriage had given Wilhelm his two stepsisters. His father Heinrich was the owner of a cloth company, and from a young age, Wilhelm was learned, which helped when his family came into briefly into money. And by the age of 12, he was already reading the works of Nietzsche, Schopenhauer, Ibsen, and even Shakespeare, and would often put on stage productions, which he had often roped his siblings into doing. Worried about his son's obsession with books, thinking that it would ruin his health, the father Heinrich sent Wilhelm on holidays to the German island of Juist to spend time in nature. It's believed that this experience may have influenced the young filmmaker, whose work through expressionism would have often hints of naturalism and a love of nature.
Wait, as Alex would say, pause.
Yes.
A, 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 books were bad for your health. As a teacher, I'm offended. I can't believe
It's
people thought that.
2024.
I've
What
never
doesn't
heard that before. I've never
anymore?
heard
No,
that before.
no, it's like you're. I think he was thinking like, oh, you're inside, obsessed, just reading books. Go outside, touch grass, kind of
Oh, it's
thing.
that. Oh, yeah.
I probably feel like it's a little more of that, which I mean,
It was the video
you
games
shouldn't
of its day.
you shouldn't really like necessarily do that, but it you should go outside every once in a while, you know?
Yeah, and then I know German like stereotypes, like you got to be well. It's like in here, Western society in general. If you're a man, you got to be a man. You got to go outside. Like you're not going to be an intellectual artiste. But anyway,
Eventually Wilhelm would go on to a higher education, studying philosophy at the University of Berlin, along with his best friend Hans.
Hans Delbruck.
No, not Hans Delbruck. Hans Ehrenbaum Degel, the poet and the son of a Jewish banker. It's presumed that this relationship might have been something more. You see, Wilhelm was gay, something that was hard to be in Germany under the oppressive Paragraph 175, which was the German criminal code that made same sex relationships a crime. A code that would not be repealed until 1994, over 60 years after Murnau's death. that the friendship between Wilhelm and Hans was so great that Hans's family even welcomed Wilhelm as one of their own. Wilhelm would start performing and would catch the attention of Max Reinhardt, the prominent stage director and producer, with his own famous theater troupe. Funny enough, Reinhardt would also transition into film, but only for one movie, the production of Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. See, I told you I'd give
Hey,
you
you
the...
said it would come
Yes,
back.
it would come back, which he had co-directed with William Dieterle, the future director of Best Picture winner The Life of Emile Zola, as well as Hunchback of Notre Dame and The Devil and Daniel Webster, or all that money can buy. But now I've gone off track. Let me reel it back in. It was at this point that Wilhelm wanted to act, and he decided to abandon his studies and work in the more progressive theater troupe. This had infuriated his father, who stopped sending him any money, making Wilhelm almost personally estranged from his family. Wilhelm would eventually change his name from Plum to Murnau, which was the name of a town in which he had spent his childhood. In the Reinhardt Company, Murnau would meet Heinrich Gallien and Max Schreck, with whom he would eventually make his most famous film. Gallien would write the film in his trademark expressionistic, almost poetic style, which would take hold of Murnau's own writing style for most of his films. And Schreck would become the famous vampire we know today, and more on them later. By 1914, the Great War had broken out. Murnau was stationed in the Foot Guards in Potsdam and eventually became a company commander in Riga. Hans also would fight in the war, although he would eventually die in combat in 1915, which had devastated the young Murnau. By 1917, Murnau had joined the Imperial German Flying Corps and flew missions into northern France. He was also in at least 8 plane crashes and survived every single one without any severe injuries. Although eventually, after making a landing in Switzerland, Murnau was arrested and interned in a POW camp, where he would be in for the remainder of the war. And, of course, he would eventually get involved in the camp's theater group. After the war, Murnau decided to start his own company. And at a young age, Murnau had been fascinated with, I assume that in the late 1800s and early 1900s, the art of film, which was not seen as a high art or remarkable field. Like the way that philosophy, what he was studying in school, or acting, what he left school to perform in, was at the time. But now, after the war, the film industry was a big industry all over the world. Murnau would start a studio with a young up-and-coming actor, Conrad Veidt, who, in a year's time, would make his name as Cesare in the aforementioned horror film The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and would eventually have an illustrious career in Hollywood and Britain in the role of Gwynplaine in The Man Who Laughs, all the way to Major Strasser in the award-winning Casablanca. The unfortunate thing about Murnau's early film career is that it no longer exists. His first 6 films just are gone. They're missing. Only fragments remain of it. This is the case for most silent films, of which historians only claim that 10% still survive to this day. This includes Murnau's first film, The Boy in Blue, his anthology film, Satanas, and the film Der Januskopf, which had starred Conrad Veidt. Der Januskopf was also a loose adaptation of a famous British novel, but this time Robert Louis Stevenson's The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which had also starred in a supporting role a little known Hungarian expat by the name of Bela Lugosi. This is a callback. But what we do have left of Murnau's filmography gives us an insight into his evolution of filmmaking and of silent film as a medium. One of the earliest films we have of his is The Haunted Castle, which that's the English translation of the film. And unlike the title suggests, it's not a horror film, but rather a melodrama, which is why I usually prefer to call it either Schloss Vogelord or Castle Vogelord. It's basically about a man who is accused of murdering his brother and decides during a party to clear his name. Other than the more naturalism of the setting and a nightmare sequence towards in a portion of the film, there's not too much to indicate what would come about in the next year. Now, this is where we start talking about Nosferatu, baby.
All right.
Nosferatu started as the baby of its producer, Albin Grau. In the film Shadow of the Vampire, he's played by Udo Kier. Grau was the film's production designer as well. And he also designed some of the promotional material as well. Grau was an occultist, part of the Fortunatus Saturnari. Because of his influence, we get the film's occult symbolism that we see frequently in the film. Grau, along with Enrico Dreichmann, founded the studio Prana Films, which was to produce films based around occult and spiritual films, with such titles as Dreams of Hell and The Swamp Devil. Before their first production, Grau went back into his own history. According to him, while serving in the German army, Grau came across a Serbian father who had alleged that his own father had become one of the Walking Dead, a vampire.
Ooh.
It's speculated that the story's completely made up, possibly to help promote the film. But either way, it was set. The first production on Prana Films was to be an adaptation of Dracula. Its title was changed to the title Nosferatu, which probably came from the archaic Roman word Nesferatu, meaning the offensive one or the insufferable one. Film rights at the time were not as concrete as they are today, and Galeen, Murnau, and co. Took large liberties with Bram Stoker's famous pulp horror novel. They decided to cover the tracks on the story by Germanifying the names and places and changing aspects of the story as well as the ending. This would not work, as we will later see. The production would start filming in July 1921 in the town of Wismar. Exterior shots were also filmed in the town of Lübeck, where some locations still remain, such as the Salzbecker, or the salt storehouses which were used for the vampire's new German home. And while interior scenes were shot in Jaffa Studios, the production had also went into the High Tatars in the country then known as Czechoslovakia, is present-day Slovakia. The location chosen for Dracula's castle was Orava, a castle that was built in the 13th century, set high on a castle cliff overlooking Orava River. Originally a wooden rampart that was eventually built into stone by the Hungarians as fortification against Ottoman invasion. The castle was, I believe, abandoned at the time, but it still stands today and is now a tourist attraction.
That's cool.
I believe they film a couple of films there, as well as other Dracula adaptations. I think they filmed a Dragonheart film as there as well.
Mm.
But I digress. And the cast would be set. The actor Gustav von Wagenheim. Yes, Gustav von Wangenheim, there we go, played Hutter, the Jonathan Harker character, who travels to Transylvania to meet the Count on his realtor deal. In Shadow of the Vampire, he's played by Eddie Izzard. The Mina character was changed to Ellen and is played by Greta Schroeder. Greta was played in the film by Catherine McCormick, who plays her more as a well-known actress and famous diva rather than who she actually was in real life, a little-known then recently divorced actress. I mean, she would eventually remarry the famous horror actor Paul Wegener, but I think they almost immediately divorced as well.
It's sad.
But Greta Strode would continue her work into like the 30s, acting wise. And the Dracula, originally to be played by Conrad Veidt, fresh off his role as Cesare, the role instead went to Max Schreck. Schreck was his actual last name.
Huh.
It's German for fear. Yeah, so but unlike
Shrek the Ogre is fear.
But unlike in Shadow of the Vampire, where he's played by Willem Dafoe, he's really great in it. I recommend you see him in it. The facts around him in the film are mostly correct, besides the whole vampire thing. He was part of the Reinhardt Company. He had spent most of his life acting in the theater, much to his father's dismay. And at a height of 6'3", the opposing stature of Schreck made him the perfect fit for the newly named Count Orlok.
Now, does that mean anything? Orlok?
I'm not so sure. Now,
just made up a name.
I have to look into that as well.
Just go with that.
Yeah. Unlike the Dracula in the novel, the bearded boyar who gets younger and younger as he feasts on his victim's blood, the Count of Nosferatu is a slender man. Not the video game. A rat-like in facial appearance, mostly to denote the eventual plague of rats and death that he brings about to the fictional German town of Visborg. In a film that is denoted as being an expressionist film of this area, you would be remiss if you started it and confused as to why it doesn't have the same visual trappings as Robert Wiener's Caligari, with its painted backgrounds and angular shapes, or the massive architecture and set design of the titular city in Fritz Lang's Metropolis. Or even in some of Murnau's later films, like Faust, which delves heavily into experimentation with camera and special effects in order to bring the character of Mephistopheles to life in Faust's Evil Bargain. But because in comparison, it seems Nosferatu is immensely naturalistic, especially as we go about with Hunter on his trip through the Transylvania woodlands. What Galeen does is take Harker's journey to the castle in the novel, which make it the backbone of the film, even though that takes like the first 4 chapters of the original novel. What instead we get is the oddity, the shape, and the appearance of the Count as part of the expressionist element to bring the film into this art horror movement. Everything is eclipsed by his presence. And what he does in the film, from the rising out of his coffin, standing straight up, to his fast travel, to his appearance of a shadow on the wall, almost like the shadow of death itself. All of this was perfectly captured by the cinematographer Fritz Arno Wagner, who was played in the film by Cary Elwes, who fictionalizes him as a gun-shooting tough guy. Which I could not confirm on whether or not that was how he was in real life. So Nosferatu, now subtitled A Symphony of Horror, is a film with many themes about the other, occultism, the mythology of the vampire, an analogy of the horrors of World War I, and the role of the heroine, not to spoil this 100-year-old film, of course. Although I will.
Huh.
This film has been thought of and dissected since it came out more than 100 years ago. One theory of the film that kind of puts a sort of I feel like this is going to be the part that'll put like a little bit of a negative on it, so bear with me here. One theory is how the film and most other films in the German Expressionist movement had captured the thoughts and feelings of the post-war German society that they either showcase or eventually led. I don't agree with that theory, by the way, to the rise of anti-Semitism and the Nazi Party. This point was captured by Sigrid Kracauer in his film criticism From Caligari to Hitler, a study that is a good read on culture of the early German cinema, but is probably mostly bunk. For example, people have interpreted the film's use of rat-like images and the plague mentioned in the film and equate it to images of old European images of anti-Semitism, a claim that Count Orlok was similar to the stereotypical portray of the Jew. This was, however, probably not the actual intention of Murnau and co. There are many people that worked on the film who are Jewish, including the writer Heinrich Green. Murnau himself was friendly with Jews. We just mentioned how his previous lover was also Jewish. This was probably because, he saw something in common with Jews, a persecuted minority in Germany, and him himself, a homosexual, another subgroup of people who were persecuted in Germany at the time. You want my opinion? This film most likely takes the images of the plague and the rats and all of this and stem it from medieval times, relating it to, the Black Death, which had ravaged Europe and killed millions. But regardless,
I agree with that.
Yeah, but regardless, I believe this film is a treat to watch, just as a horror film, but also just as a film in general, especially how this film has just withstood the test of time. It's just a great watch because I believe it's guaranteed to creep people out. I think there's this great bit that Pat Oswalt did where he's talking about how as a kid he watched Nosferatu in like a get together with kids, and he was obviously too young for it, and he was like freaking out because this was supposed to be like a little Halloween get together or something like that.
Who's this, Patton Oswalt?
Yeah, Patton Oswalt.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So,
That's awesome.
Yeah. So Nosferatu premiered on March 4th, 1922, at a big event at the Berlin Zoological Garden, complete with orchestrational accompaniment. While the film itself was not a commercial hit, it proved critically successful, making Murnau a well-known name in the film industry at the time, with his film The Burning Soil being released a couple of days later. So, unlike the end of The Shadow of the Vampire, as I mentioned, all the cast members were alive, and they had not had their necks bitten.
Huh.
So apparently, Prana Films has spent more money on the publicity for the film than its production, which did not help the fledgling film company face off against debts, nor what was about to happen. So, Bram Stoker had sadly passed away back in 1912, and his estate was left in the hands of his widow, Florence. Now, in early 1922, she had received a letter about the opening event for Nosferatu in Berlin. She had not been aware of Nosferatu's existence until that moment. As Stoker's literary executor and struggling financially, she, along with the lawyers that represented the British Society of Authors, had sued Prana Films and the Deutsche Amerikanische Film Union, which I'll abbreviate as DAFU, which was the receivership of Prana Films once their debt had piled on. The case would drag on in court for about 2 years, and eventually Prana Films would declare bankruptcy. They only made one film, Nosferatu. In
He cursed the
1925,
studio.
yes, in 1925, she won her case and demanded all copies of and prints of the film were to be destroyed. But unfortunately, it was too late for Florence. The ship of death had already set sail with Count Orlok on it, and it was making its way around the world. Nosferatu had made its first screenings in New York City in 1929, and by this time, the pictures were talking. So some people were critical of this film. I imagine calling the film blasé because, it was a silent film. By this time, we were already 2 years into post jazz singer world, and especially because they probably would be comparing it to the Murnau films that came later. So, after Nosferatu, the filmmaker would deal a lot more with experimental imagery. His film Phantom, for example, uses the ghostly image of Death's wagon, which is a lot more spooky than the wagon he portrays as Count Orlok's carriage, and is a lot more akin to Victor Sierstrom's carriage in The Phantom Carriage, which came out the same year. But also don't be fooled, Phantom is also not a horror movie. It's a silent melodrama, and it has way more in common with Hitchcock's Vertigo than it does with, say, Dracula. But in 1924, Murnau would make my personal favorite film of his, The Last Laugh. The film follows Emil Jannings, who plays a hotel doorman who loses his job, which was his pride and joy. He loved being the hotel doorman. What is very notable about the film is its camera work, which was done by Karl Freund, who would eventually do the cinematography on Dracula. Fun fact.
That's cool.
Yeah, and eventually he would do the cinematography for all the episodes of I Love Lucy.
I think I've heard that fact before.
Yes, but he used an approach called an unchained camera, which was a mixture of pans and dollies and other camera movements in order to help enhance the acting and the overall theme of oppressive despair and working class injustice. I really like this film. It's really good, but it's also really sad. So it's kind of a tearjerker in a way. Other films included are the previous mentioned Faust and the romantic comedy The Finances of the Grand Duke, which is also a favorite of mine. But in 1926, Murnau was offered a deal by William Fox, the head of Fox Studios, to come and work in the United States. Well, he took the offer and went to Hollywood. There he made what is possibly his masterpiece, Sunrise, A Song of Two Humans. Starring George O'Brien and Janet Gaynor, this beautiful film is about a farmer who cheats on his wife with a city woman. She's a flapper who tempts him to kill his wife. When he almost does this, to her horror, he tries to make it up to her through the course of a day trip in the city. The film certainly made a splash at the first Academy Awards, winning the only award for Best Unique and Artistic Production, as well as winning for Best Cinematography and Best Actress for Janet Gaynor, which she also won for the films Street Angel and Seventh Heaven. Also, side note, previous Murnau film star Emil Jannings also won Best Actor the same year for his role in The Last Command and the now lost film The Way of the Flesh. You see, just like Zach, I'm a repository of the Academy Awards.
Yes. That's fine. I love it.
Yeah,
Glad to have you.
Yeah, this film is generally considered one of the greatest American movies, if not one of the greatest movies, period, and is currently ranked at number 11 on Sight and Sound's greatest movie polls. Although, in previous years, it has ranked as high as 5th place. The success of the film had allowed Murnau to stay in the United States, where he would eventually buy a farm in Oregon, which would probably influence the making of one of his later films, City Girl. And even in the United States, Murnau became enamored with a young actor, David Rowlands. He even took some glamour shots of him, which you can find online. Murnau's next films, though, were not a success, or at least not as successful as Sunrise. Four Devils, which is now lost and very sought after, and City Girl were just not big money makers. Just like Sunrise and just like all of his films, they were not talking pictures. They were silent films, which was his preferred medium of choice. So an interest in talking films probably led to their failure and kind of disillusioned Murnau. So eventually, for his next film, Taboo, A Story of the South Seas, Murnau would make his way to Bora Bora with filmmaker Robert J. Flattery, the man behind the film Nanook of the North, in an effort to try and capture a story that takes place within the Polynesian culture. Flattery would eventually leave the project due to creative differences with Murnau, leaving him to eventually finish the film himself. Now, on March 10th, 1931, a week before the premiere of Taboo, Murnau was riding in his car, a rented Packard, driving down the Pacific Coast Highway. The valet had to swerve to avoid an oncoming truck, but because of this, the car would overturn and strike an embankment. All the occupants of the car were tossed out, and Murnau was found with a head injury and was quickly taken to Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital. But this famous filmmaker, who had survived not just one, but 8 plane crashes, would eventually pass away from his injuries from the car crash the next day.
That's sad.
Yeah, it is.
How
His
old was
body
he?
was, he was born in 1888, and died in 1931, which would make him math.
That's hard.
43.
Okay.
Aw.
43. So, his body was taken back to Germany, and he was buried in Berlin. Although in 1915 his head was stolen.
Wait,
Someone-
1915.
In 2015, sorry. In 2015, his head was stolen.
What?
Yes, someone broke into his resting place, and his head has still haven't been returned. So someone just stole his head.
That sucks.
Wax was
Wait.
apparently found on his
What?
tomb, which probably denoted that there was possible occult-like rituals there.
Oh, because of Nosferatu?
Maybe, I don't know.
That's weird.
Yeah, that's a slight aside, but his last film contribution would be remembered for taboo cinematographer Floyd Crosby winning the Academy Award.
Ooh.
Yeah, so Floyd Crosby is probably best known for Taboo, as well as the cinematography on High Noon, as well as working on some of Roger Corman's Poe films. But maybe his biggest contribution to the latter half of the 20th century is probably being the father to David Crosby.
Oh, did not know that.
Yes. So, but what of Murnau in the film Shadow of the Vampire? He is the main character after all. Well, I mentioned that he is portrayed by John Malkovich, and John Malkovich plays him almost as an obsessive man with a cold demeanor who's ready to flip on someone if he gets in the way of his vision. In the film, he gets mad that Max Schreck has been he killed the cinematographer, so he's like, "You will have no close-ups, none. Why didn't you eat the script, girl?" To which Willem Dafoe replies, "I'll eat her later." It's a really funny movie. I do recommend it for a nice film related goof and gaff. But
So, Matt, why are you talking about all of this?
hold on, I'm so I'm not sure if that was the correct caricature of Murnau that is portrayed in the film. So now I'll read an excerpt of a memoir of a set designer who worked with Murnau. So he was always good-humored. He was never really angry when he sounded angry, and our team was extremely happy, and always ready for jokes and teasing one another. It was partly the exuberance of the people who knew him. They were all in the process of creating something exceptional. Partly the spirit of that time when the people were always trying to spring surprises on one another. So that's how his character reads to me, and not like how Malkovich portrays him, which is way more in line with German film director Fritz Lang. You want to talk about someone who is a very authoritarian type of filmmaker.
Fritz Lang, he had the sick eye patch, right?
Yeah.
Well,
So Ford wasn't the only one who acted with an eye patch.
Oh yeah, John
Who
Ford
had
as
an
well.
Ford had an eye patch. Lang had an eye patch. So
Well,
and as you were saying, Alex.
I was just saying. No, I was just gonna say when I think of Nosferatu, I think of that episode of SpongeBob.
I will get to that.
I was waiting for someone to say that.
That's how this is. Okay, so what of his creation? The Beast of Balal. Nosferatu. So, Count Orlok holds a strength over the horror culture. Nosferatu is, in my opinion, the best adaptation of the novel Dracula. It may not be the most accurate to the book, obviously, but it's just the epitome of the vampire itself. The film has an immeasurable impact on the vampire and the horror film. The concept of a vampire dying from sunlight was made up for this film. It's something that doesn't actually appear in any vampire lore. It was a poetic touch in the film in order to emphasize light triumphing over the darkness. But
Makes
any
sense.
film that has this element in their own film owes a debt to Nosferatu. This film is still incredibly popular. It's been in circulation in different formats for years. There was another version of the film that was edited in the 30s as a sound film called The 12th Hour, which gives it a happier ending. There's a copy of this film that's been in public domain for decades, and it can be seen on American television, scaring kids on many a public access TV station late at night.
Like Patton Oswalt.
Yeah, it's influenced music, books, comics, stage musicals, and even an appearance on SpongeBob SquarePants. Nosferatu! The film has also been the subject of remakes. Werner Herzog has made his own version of the film in 1979. He considers Nosferatu to be one of the greatest German films. Superlatives. Robert Desnos, the surrealist poet, once called it the most beautiful film ever made. People calling it the greatest film of Weimar films. Lotte Eisner said Murnau was the greatest film director Germans have ever known. Yeah, Werner Herzog said it's the greatest of all German films, a masterpiece, equal to that of Griffith, Pudovkin, Buñuel, and Kurosawa. So, really high praise. Herzog's own film version is very beautiful and meditative, and he really makes his version his own.
And operatic, too.
And then there was a recent film version from David Fisher Lee. He made his in a similar way to how he remade The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and it starred Doug Jones as the titular vampire. But the reason why I'm talking about Murnau and the reason why I'm talking about Shadow of the Vampire today is because we've got a remake coming up as well from Robert Eggers. Interestingly enough, it stars Willem Dafoe as well. But I wanted this to also be a starting off point to talk about one of my favorite filmmakers and one of my favorite horror films. Even though it's almost Christmas time, but
Well, yeah.
That's when
It's
that
relevant.
is the day when this new version of Nosferatu is coming out. So
On Christmas Day.
yes, so we're gonna be watching it as you're listening to it right now. So get your butts in those seats.
And that'll be what we open up with talking about in our next pod, which will be at the end of January.
Also, I want to briefly mention as an aside, did nobody fucking listen to me in the last episode when I said,
What?
please be kind? There was over 7,000 of you on Black Friday at my theater. What the fuck?
I know, I
And
thought
then
I was being attacked.
6,000, and then 6,000 the next Saturday. What the fuck?
Yeah, I guess it's good for business.
You just calm the fuck down.
Jeez.
Anyway, I digress. So, I'll kind of end this with the words of film critic Roger Ebert writing about Nosferatu in his Great Movies writing series. Here is the story of Dracula before it is buried alive in cliches, jokes, TV skits, cartoons, and more than 30 other films. The film is in awe of its material. It seems to really believe in vampires. Is Murnau's Nosferatu scary in the modern sense? Not for me. I admire it more for its artistry and ideas, its atmosphere and images, than for its ability to manipulate my emotions like a skillful modern horror film. It knows none of the later tricks of the trade, like sudden threats that pop up on the side of the screen, but Nosferatu remains effective. It doesn't scare us. It haunts us. And I think that that's where I'll leave it for today. Now, I highly recommend watching the films from Murnau, especially Nosferatu, of course. But also, I highly recommend watching Last Laugh and Sunrise. Because he truly was, in my opinion, one of the great silent film directors. And go out on Christmas weekend and watch Robert Eggers' version. I entrust that his version is also really good. I'm hearing great things about it. I feel like I'm gonna enjoy that.
Me
Don't
too.
see Mufasa.
Now I promise for next time, the segment will not be about a filmmaker. I did last time on Ed Wood, this time, so I promise it just happened to become that. I promise next time I won't do it. Okay, it's not going to be another filmmaker.
He won't do it. He just won't do it.
I just won't do it. Okay, all right. All right. So we'll end it there.
All right.
All right. And also, if you have Murnau's head, please return it. Bring it back.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Yes.
Bring it back. Bring it back.